Equals. The wind howled through the shattered valley of Figueres as Luis Ortega, a weary Republican soldier, trudged north through mud and snow. Behind him, Catalonia's fields burned, the red and gold banners torn down by Franco's advancing troops. Convoys of refugees clogged the roads, mothers clutching infants, old men pushing carts filled with the ashes of their homes. Luis pressed on, rifle slung over his shoulder, his boots splitting at the seams. "France," someone whispered beside him, their voice trembling with disbelief. To cross the Pyrenees meant salvation, or so they hoped. Shells still echoed in the distance as Spain devoured its last resistance. Luis looked back one final time at the land he had fought for and whispered, "Perdóname, mi patria." The night swallowed his words as he stepped toward the border under a sky bleeding with fire.
At dawn, Luis reached the cold ridgeline dividing Spain and France. Snowflakes clung to his hair as he and hundreds of others stumbled through a mountain pass guarded by French gendarmes. The men in blue coats looked uneasy at the sea of ragged exiles trudging into their land. Some shouted orders in French, none offered comfort. "Lay down your arms," came the demand. Luis hesitated, his chipped Mauser rifle heavy in his hands. Reluctantly, he set it on the growing pile of surrendered weapons beneath the watchtowers. Beyond the mountains stretched fields of frost and whispered rumors of safety, yet the faces around him carried only confusion and defeat. "Bienvenue," a French soldier muttered coldly. Luis stared ahead, realizing freedom had no welcome.
They herded them south, toward the sea Argelès-sur-Mer. The name sounded like rest, but what awaited was a barren beach fenced with barbed wire. The Mediterranean shimmered cold and cruel, waves dark under winter clouds. Thousands of exiles dug holes in the sand to shield against the wind. "This is France?" someone cried bitterly. Luis huddled beside a stranger, their hands stiff from frost. There were no tents, no food beyond what was thrown across the wire. At night, the surf mingled with coughs and quiet sobs. From the watchtowers, French troops stared down at the shivering multitude with uneasy pity. Luis stared at the sea, the endless gray horizon, and wondered if a country could die quietly on a beach.
February turned to March, but warmth never came. Frost coated the sand by morning, and men awoke stiff as boards. Disease spread through the camp, dysentery, pneumonia, hunger, slow decay. Luis watched comrades fade like smoke. Occasionally trucks arrived with bread, but it was moldy, insufficient for the thousands trapped behind the wire. He met a Catalan teacher named Clara, her eyes sharp even through exhaustion. "They called us heroes once," she murmured. "Now they treat us like ghosts." Together, they scavenged driftwood for fires, their friendship a fragile ember in the cold. Yet beyond the rumor of aid, across the sea, Europe was changing again. Hitler in Czechoslovakia, Mussolini moving closer to Spain's new dictator. Luis realized their war had ended, but the world's was about to begin.
Weeks passed. Luis wrote letters to what remained of his family in Madrid, unsure if any would reach across occupied Spain. "Alive," he scribbled with shaking hands, but no longer free. Around the camp, men whispered of opportunity, to join the French Foreign Legion, to labor in factories, to vanish into anonymity. Clara dreamed of Paris. Luis dreamed only of sleep without hunger. At night, they listened to the surf and the wind rattling through the wire. Hope became a habit, one repeated without belief. "When will the world remember us?" Clara asked one evening. Luis looked toward the dark sea and whispered, "When the next war comes, maybe they'll understand what was lost." By summer, the camps thinned. Thousands accepted foreign enlistment. Others vanished into French towns. Luis volunteered for labor service, mending roads in the southern countryside. Rumors spread of war, the German army mobilizing. Hitler's gaze turning west. French officers eyed their Spanish laborers with mixed suspicion and need. One officer told Luis, "If war comes, you'll fight again, but this time under our flag." Luis felt the weight of irony, escaping one tyranny only to serve another's defense. The sky over France darkened. Radios hissed with speeches from Berlin. Clara wrote from Toulouse, "The same storm that drowned Spain is coming for all." He folded her words in silence.
September 1939. France declared war on Germany. Louis, now wearing a French worker's uniform, watched trains filled with soldiers heading to the front. He was assigned to an engineering regiment, digging trenches near the Maginot Line. The irony haunted him, the exile of Spain defending a crumbling Europe. He thought of Clara's words as German planes droned overhead in practice flights across the border. Every day the air smelled of iron and fear. "You've seen this before, haven't you?" a French sergeant asked. Louis nodded grimly. The faces, the uniforms, the promises, they all blurred together. No matter the flag, war's breath felt the same, cold and endless.
1940 brought thunder. German armor broke through the Ardennes, sweeping aside French defenses like leaves in a storm. Luis's unit retreated south, chaos on every road. German bombers screamed overhead, while columns of refugees filled the horizon. It was Spain again, reborn in terror. In June, as Paris fell, the regiment dissolved in panic. Luis threw his rifle aside and hid among farmers near Limoges. At night, fires burned on the hills. The sound of weeping carried through the valleys. "It never ends," he whispered. The dream of freedom had died twice, and now Europe itself lay in chains.
Under occupation. Luis joined local farmers who sheltered exiles. They called themselves the Maquis. Hidden in forests, they printed leaflets, sabotaged railways, whispered rebellion. The French villagers trusted the quiet Spaniard with the eyes of an old soldier. One autumn night, Clara appeared again, older, hardened, carrying coded notes for the underground. Together they struck at patrols, their vengeance small but precise. For the first time in years, Luis felt purpose. "We fight so one day no one will have to run," Clara said. They both knew they might not see that day. Still, the forest wind carried their defiance into the dark.
Years later, the war ended. Luis walked once more to the sea, this time free. The beaches of Argelès were quiet now. The barbed wire rusted, the sand smooth under spring sunlight. He knelt where he once dug to survive and placed a small stone, engraved with a name, Clara, 1944. Around him, gulls cried and waves rolled in endless rhythm. "We came here dying," he whispered, "and somehow we lived." History had no monuments for their exile, only the wind and the sea to remember them. As the tide rose, Luis closed his eyes, hearing the ghosts of thousands carried on the waves, the forgotten republic that had refused to die.